This is Rock and Roll English. Real people, real English. Here's your host, Martin Johnston.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll English episode. I always do this, don't I? I honestly could check that, but I'm just not going to, because I simply can't be bothered. It's not really important anyway, is it, to know the episode number? It's like 374, something like that. Anyway, today's episode, it's one of those special ones. I think this is the first time ever I've actually done a podcast like this, because I was kind of invited on someone else's podcast, but we'd planned to do this podcast, as you'll hear, a long time ago. So we've decided to both put it out. It is with Lewis from English with Lewis, and we are talking about the very small thing coming up, the World Cup. Okay, World Cup 2026. I had almost forgotten it was coming, okay? But this is what we talk about. And since we recorded this, I have been so pumped up for this World Cup, okay? So I hope this episode has this effect on you. Now, let me tell you a quick story, okay? When I was very young, I had a job at a supermarket. And I was, obviously, as you can imagine, I wasn't particularly enthusiastic about my job at the supermarket. 16, 17 years old, spending 8 hours on a till, and not really enjoying it, especially because I'd probably been out on the Friday night, not had much sleep. And I remember there was something there that said, enthusiasm is like a ripple, it spreads. Now, there's a good piece of vocabulary there as well, a ripple. So if you throw a stone in some water, it will plop, and then you will see the ripples in the water, okay, and they spread. And when I saw that, enthusiasm is like a ripple, it spreads, I must admit, I thought that is pathetic. Like, I thought it was hilarious. However, I've come to realise that is true, because the reason I'm saying this is because I've noticed with football, say with like my wife, even my children now. So I recently watched the Champions League final with my daughter, who is not into football, but she managed to enjoy it because of my enthusiasm. I feel my enthusiasm rubbed off on her. Nice piece of vocabulary again, rubbed off. It kind of moved to her. I sort of moved some of my enthusiasm to her. And that is what I hope to do with this podcast, okay? Now, I've listened back to this, and in fact, if Lewis listens to this, I just want to say sorry to Lewis, because I noticed I was waffling a lot. Another great piece of vocabulary, waffling, just talking, because I was so excited. Like, recording a podcast, kind of, I never really like to call it work, but kind of a work thing. Like the idea that I can talk about a World Cup for work, that's living the dream. And so there are lots of stories about World Cups, happy memories, not so happy memories, and lots of random things, okay? So remember, this was actually me on Lewis's podcast, but there we go. So yes, I think that's about all I have to say. Now, I am going to tell you something at the end, because we did predict our winners of the World Cup. However, what I've decided to do is cut the episode a bit short, and I will put the link to the video for that part, okay, because the video will make it much better. And the second part, where we kind of predict winners, we kind of go through all the teams, all the groups, talk about players. So then maybe that's a bit more in-depth. Maybe you need to know something about football for that. However, this first part of the podcast, I don't believe you need to know anything about football. I'm just hoping that enthusiasm is like a ripple, and it will spread, and I hope my enthusiasm for this World Cup will rub off on you. Okay, so here is the podcast. Happy listening.
Are you excited about the World Cup? It starts in just a few days. So in this video podcast, we're going to have a chat about the World Cup, our memories, some quiz questions, and we're actually going to predict who we think is going to win the World Cup. So a pleasure to see you again, Martin. How's life?
So fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I cannot tell you how up for this I am. I am so excited to be here. And Lewis had the great idea of getting a beer ready as well. So I am so excited to be here. So life at this exact moment is very, very good.
And it's funny, we didn't really plan this. People know that I live in Brussels, in Belgium, and I've got a Belgian beer, which is Jupiler, the official sponsor and beer of the Red Devils. And Martin, you've also got a Belgian beer.
I do. I don't know where this come from. I just found it in my fridge, but it's there, and so it's there to be drunk, I suppose.
It's delicious, I'm sure. And
exactly.
We're doing this because we got together maybe 9 months ago, and we had a little podcast, a little chat, and we ended up speaking quite a lot about football. And we mentioned during that podcast that, it'd be great if we could do this again just before the World Cup happened. And look, we've stuck to our word.
Exactly. Here we are. Now, I had this in the back of my mind, but sort of about the World Cup, I think maybe like, are you excited about the World Cup? Sort of you mentioned. The thing is with when a World Cup happens, now at this stage of my life, I've got so much going on, like work, kids and stuff. It's like when I go on holiday, it's like, I don't have so much time to think about it. And then all of a sudden it just appears as, I forgot about this. Because it's literally next week now, isn't it? Because it's one of those things where you keep thinking, it's miles away, but we're nearly there now. So this is exactly what I need to get myself pumped up for it, because otherwise it would have just been like, oh my God, the World Cup starts tomorrow. But here we are. So I am getting pumped up.
You're pumped, you're buzzing, you can't wait. And I don't know if you've noticed it online. Maybe you haven't, with kids, work, lots going on. But the last 24 hours, maybe 48 hours, I've been hooked on the most interesting story that has come out related to the World Cup. I'm going to say his name, and then I want to judge by your reaction to see if you have any idea who he is. Tim Payne.
No, I don't.
Now, this evening, you're going to be looking it up and watching all the videos, especially if you speak a little bit of Spanish. So there's this Argentinian football influencer who literally a week ago posted a video, and he was trying to find...
predicting? Is this some prediction or something?
It's not a prediction. It's something much purer and more beautiful. So it was this influencer posted a video, and he said that we're all very excited about the World Cup. We're all going to cheer on our countries and our teams. But what if one player could unite us all? What if there was one player that we could all get behind? So what he did from there is find the lowest ranked country that is competing at the World Cup, New Zealand, and then the player who has been selected by New Zealand to represent them with the lowest number of followers. So he found the least known footballer competing at the World Cup. His name is Tim Payne. No pain, no gain. And then what happened is magic, and it's life-changing. So he went from having 4,000 followers to now having over 5 million followers.
My God.
And he's had a cumbia song made after him. And there's this rabbit hole that you can go down, which is all about Tim Payne, of people interviewing other people in the street. Like, who are you most excited to see at the World Cup? Cristiano? Messi? Tim Payne. It's brilliant.
Does he play is he actually going to play, or is he likely to get 0 minutes?
He is the starting right back of New Zealand.
Right back. Glamorous then. Glamorous. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
Very interesting. No, I hadn't heard of Tim Payne.
Well, now you know, but let's focus more on the more relevant stories of the World Cup. But tell me about Italy. You lived in Italy before, and you used to live in Sicily, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct, yeah.
But unfortunately, Italy are not going to be there yet again. So how do you feel about it?
Now, for the Italian people that listen, may not like my answer, but I am delighted they are not there. Because, as I'm sure you will remember, England lost in the final to Italy. So it's 2021, wasn't it? It was for the 2020 Euros, but because of COVID, got moved, whatever. So England lost in the final to Italy, and when England lost, obviously I was very disappointed. But I thought, yeah, exactly. But I thought, well, you know what? We've lost to the team which had always been my second team, even as a kid, because my grandparents were actually Italian, and certainly when I was a kid, like in the 90s, like 2000s, Italy were far much more successful than England. So generally England would go out kind of quarterfinals, and then I would kind of support Italy. So we lost, and I thought, well, number one, Italy played much better in the game; they deserved to win. And number two, I thought, well, we've lost to kind of my second team. If I could have picked someone else, it would have been them. However, that was like my immediate reaction after the match. But then I honestly got so much abuse from so many people. And I also actually didn't like, there was lots of things kind of like online, like, and people being so nasty towards English people. Like, for example, all the English players after the final, they took off their medals, which, they lost, and they said, but for example, it was like, and people would say to me, I remember getting my hair cut, and then they would say, like, you don't know how to lose. And I was like, sorry, what? Like, and it was always very much like you kind of like, and I was like, what? I can swear on here, yeah?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, you want. I was like, fuck you. So, and then like I was getting like loads of messages from like Italian friends. So on the night Italy failed to qualify, so I'll tell you how sad and pathetic I am. Someone had made a post after that match, after the final, and he had said some very nice things about England. And I remember he also said, like, translated, because he had written this in Italian, as like, people can say whatever they want, but we make ourselves respected in football. And I went on Facebook and I scrolled down on his timeline to like 5 years ago now, and then I just commented, "Oh, like we're respected in football. This has not aged well." Like, and then I was just sort of going back to all other messages with other friends and messaging them. So I was actually delighted that they lost. Yeah, so I love Italy as a country, but footballing wise now, it's a team that I don't really like, I must admit. I know that sounds like my wife is Italian and stuff. My children, I suppose, are Italian, half. But yeah, I was delighted that they didn't qualify. Yeah.
You see, I was really like excited and happy about it just because of the story, just because it's something that now is getting a little bit ridiculous, because I think you said it, that it's the third time in a row that they haven't actually qualified for a World Cup, which on the one hand is a great shame. And when I look at all of the other countries that are going to the World Cup, and no offense to anyone from Curacao, but I mean, the competition would be better if Italy were there instead of Curacao, for sure, hands down. So then from a neutral point of view, I'm like, oh, it'd be nice if Italy were there. But I know that if England didn't qualify for the World Cup, then all of the other big footballing nations would be absolutely pissing themselves laughing.
Exactly.
They'd be like,
so, yeah. So that's, I mean, to be honest, there have been times in other World Cups when a big footballing nation is not there. I remember in 2002, the Dutch didn't qualify, and you see all of the fans wearing the orange, and I was quite disappointed by that. So normally I would be disappointed that a major footballing nation is not there, but in this specific case, I just had so much fun with it. For example, when Italy won the World Cup in 1982, that was the third time they had won it, and a commentator is sort of quite famous for saying, like, let's sing it together, champions of the world, like they sing it 3 times. And so I found something on social media, and I sent it to my friend who was giving me lots of stick, lots of aggro, let's say. And I said, let's sing it together. We're not going to the World Cup 3 times in a row. Let's sing together.
By the way, any Italians listening or watching, we do love you. It's just, a bit of friendly banter.
That's exactly the 2 words I was going to use, friendly banter. Like I said, I love Italy as a country, but yeah, it's just some nice friendly banter. And I think it's about World Cups. Like even, like countries, they're kind of man-made borders, aren't they? Like who says, so for example, Scotland have qualified this time. So we've got England, and then someone just says, for example, this is another country now. Like it's a load of rubbish, really. And I'm a citizen of the world, all of this kind of stuff. But when it comes to football, it's like it's a different game. But friendly, got to keep it friendly banter. Like, I am not football hooligan in any way. So yeah, friendly banter is what I like.
Exactly. Now, let's kind of take a trip down memory lane and let's have a little chat before we start predicting and going over some quiz questions. Our big memories of the World Cup. I think my first World Cup that I properly remember was probably 2006, even that I
Wow.
have like clear memories. I think 2002, I remember it a little bit, but not that well.
Okay.
I haven't got the best memory. But I remember having our golden generation when we had Frank Lampard, we had Michael Owen, we had Steven Gerrard, we had Paul Scholes, we had David Beckham, we had Gary Neville, we had Rio Ferdinand. We had
I've got a weird thing. It says someone says something which is factually incorrect with football. I can't help but correct them. So you said Paul Scholes. He retired in 2004. Just FYI.
Oh, really?
He didn't play in the 2006 World Cup. I've got this weird thing. I've got problems. I think it looked like OCD. I don't know. Weird thing. But yes, the golden generation. But it's just like you're naming them. I'm going like, yeah. So Scholes. Like, oh my God, there's an alarm going in my head. I need to tell him. I need to tell him. So apologies for that. But yeah, he retired in 2004. But yeah, we did have all of the other players that you mentioned, which were world beaters at the time.
And then we never got anywhere with them. This is the
World Cup. So we had a very brief chat about age earlier, and I said that your first World Cup, I didn't expect it to be that one. Like that World Cup, I was like, I'd have been like 21. Yeah, I've been 21. So I remember that like really, really well. And that was a letdown really, because not only did we not do anything, but just the way we played, it was just rubbish. There was nothing to get excited about, because that's the thing, I think, when in a tournament, as long as there's like a couple of moments where you can get really excited. So in the Euros, that was 2 years ago, England they got to the final in the end, but they very nearly went out against Slovenia, I believe it was.
Yeah. And it was Slovenia or Slovakia, maybe.
Slovakia, yes. So yeah, you've obviously got the correction thing as well, but yeah, you're correct.
I've got it, but with more recent history.
And we were very close to going out, and I remember thinking, if we go out now, there's been nothing to get excited about. And then Bellingham equalised in like the 92nd minute, and just even that moment, because it's all about moments, just the joy. Oh my God, I just remember jumping out of the chair. I remember I was watching that at my mum's house, and even like afterwards, you're trying to calm down afterwards. And I actually said to my mum, I think I'm going to cry because I was so happy, because I thought, oh my God, if we go out, the group games have been boring. Now we're going to lose this, and we're just going to it's going to be a nightmare. And that is the beauty of football. And just that one moment, and then everything changed, and we ended up getting to the final.
On that note, I've got to add, given that you mentioned, obviously, your wife is Italian, you're kind of from Italian roots, so then you should be happy when Italy win. My fiance, soon-to-be wife, is Spanish, and
Okay.
I used to live in Spain. So we were talking about it as it seemed like we had the chance of getting to the final together to compete against each other, and we were both really excited about it. But I was very nervous because I was looking at how well Spain were playing and how badly England were playing in the last Euros. So then when it came to the big day, the final, I met up with loads of Spanish friends. I was practically the only English guy here in Brussels watching the match. And it was so painful watching all of the match. And then I remember we were given a little bit of hope when Cole Palmer scored.
Yeah.
I think it was like 15 minutes before the end of the match. And I remember celebrating in front of all of these Spaniards, being like, come on, yeah, come on. And then it seemed that we weren't going to be able to actually make any progress and get back into the match. And then Spain overtook us and they came back. And I remember just being like, I should be happy. I should be happy for her. And they all wanted to go out for some extra drinks and celebrate. But at that moment, as soon as the whistle blew, I was just like, have fun. I'm off.
Everything you've just said is almost identical to when England got to the final, played Italy. When I was still living in Italy then. And I in fact, I made a podcast about the quarterfinal stage. I think maybe even before, quarterfinal stage. And I said, England are going to play Italy in the final. And I remember I was certain, and I was excited, but also nervous, thinking, I'm not sure about this. And then it was like we scored early, Italy got into the match. And then I remember they had a penalty to win the shootout. And they missed. And at that point, because I was during the penalty shootout, I was hearing lots of people cheering. I was watching at home with obviously all Italians, but not only the people I was with, there was all the people in the building. You could hear them all shouting. So when they missed that penalty to win, it gave us that glimmer of hope. And I have never celebrated anything like that in my life. It lasted about a minute because then we missed our penalty and then lost. But that 1 minute, I've spoken about this earlier, those moments, those 60 seconds are probably the best 60 seconds of my life because it feels so much better when you're rubbing it in someone else's face. However, it quickly turned. And again, that's the beauty of football. That's why I love it, because it's this roller coaster of emotions. So for those 60 seconds, I was the happiest man in the world. And then very quickly after, I was probably like the most, I was just gutted. It felt like someone ripped out my insides. But that's football, as they say. That's football.
And obviously, I mentioned that maybe the World Cup that I remember being the first one was 2006. I vaguely remember 2002, but not really, not enough, because I was born in 1992. Maybe I should remember that World Cup a lot better, being 10 years old.
Right,
I didn't really. Then I remember South Africa, of course, and I remember all of the ones since then really well. For you, what is the World Cup that you remember, well, as being the most life-changing, and the one that you remember being the first World Cup that you could actually feel the excitement?
Yeah. So the first World Cup I remember was 94. However, England didn't qualify for that. So I was supporting Italy because they had like Baggio. Like in England, we say Baggio. And they got to the final. He famously missed the penalty. But maybe that's sort of like my 2002 one. I do remember that. And I remember watching, I remember Ireland beating Italy as well. However, for me, the 98 World Cup was the one, because I would have been like 13 then, 13 and a half. Yeah. And I vividly remember getting off the bus and sprinting home because I wanted to get in for the first match, and because I was 13, but I pretty much watched. I mean, if it wasn't on during school, another great thing is that the first match, England-Tunisia, was on during the day, and our school showed it. So we had no school, and they showed it on a big screen. Like, oh my God,
Legends.
It was. Well, I still talk about that with my friends. It was amazing.
Do you remember the time when they showed England against Tunisia?
Well, we still
best day ever.
You're football mad. You're 30. Like, instead, okay. So what do you want to do today? Do you want to do like a geography lesson, or do you want to watch England in the World Cup on a big screen in the school hall? And so it was so exciting. And like in that World Cup, I like not all of the players, but I mean, the Dutch team, the Italian team, the Brazilian team, the Argentina team. I knew like all of the players. So that for me was my first. Like, I was football mad, and I was just so. I mean, England lost to Argentina in that. Was famously David Beckham got sent off, lost on penalties. But even just like the spectacle of like I watched more or less every match in that World Cup, and like that's what I would like to do now. I would like to, but with like work and kids and stuff, it's not really possible. But I would like to watch any match. If it's a World Cup match, I want to watch it, but it's a little bit more difficult to do these days.
I mean, now it's even harder as well because this year, of course, it's in North America, in the United States, Canada, and
Exactly.
Mexico. So the time zone isn't the best. It's
No.
true that for the England matches, we've got quite lucky, at least in the group stage, that we're
Yeah.
going to be able to watch all of the matches at a relatively
Yeah.
decent time. We don't have to wake up and at the crack of dawn to
Yeah.
watch it. So
So
that's a positive,
Scotland,
sure.
yeah, Scotland UK time are on at 2 a.m. That is mental. And you mentioned your first, the one that you don't remember so much, was the 2002 World Cup. That was the last time when it was like this. I remember waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning to watch England draw 0-0 with Nigeria, for example, in a group game.
6 o'clock in the morning's kind of all
Yeah,
right.
yeah. But I was like,
out the day.
yeah, but I was 17 then, and I'd probably wake up at like, midday most days. So 6 o'clock in the morning was a real difficult thing to do then. But so yeah, that was the last time I sort of had this sort of strange habit, and it is a bit frustrating because I would like to watch some of the matches with my children now. I mean, they're only 3 and 5, but for example, the match at 10 p.m. that's impossible. But I would have liked to watch some of the matches with them, but never mind.
I mean, if we get to the semi-final or the final, I'm sorry, but you've got to let them stay up if they're able to stay up.
Oh yeah, I'll literally wait. I'll have to wake them up because I said when you're older, you need to be able to say, I was there. I'll literally hold their eyes open like that.
Now, how do you feel about it being in the USA, Canada, and Mexico, aside from the time zone difference? I mean, above all, because I like it when a World Cup is in one country. And
Yeah,
it
I
seems
agree,
that
yeah.
FIFA is changing the system where they want to have more host countries, and I'm not a fan. I'd prefer it to just be in Mexico or just be in Canada. If it has to be in the United States, then fair enough. But just one country.
Yeah, no, I agree. So the Euros, the one where England got to the final was like that, wasn't it? Where it was like everywhere, wasn't it? In fact, that worked out quite well for me because I was living in Italy and I was able to go to the quarter final, which was in Rome. Because it was COVID, it was very difficult to travel. I went to see England, Ukraine at the Olympic Stadium in Rome. And because it was like in Rome, it was in London, I think it was everywhere, wasn't it? I agree. I'm not really a fan of this like multiple country thing. And here is a statistic that I always bring out, okay, which is a really good statistic. If people from my podcast, I'm sure, will remember this. So I read a book once, which was actually called "Why England Always Lose." However, the same book has also been re-released called "The Economics of Sport," and I think it sounds so much more intelligent if I say I read a book called "The Economics of Sport." So let's say I read the book called "The Economics of Sport." It is the same book; they've just changed the title. But anyway, it said when there is a World Cup, a Euros, or Olympics in one country, suicide rates in that country decrease by more than 50% that year because there is that feeling of togetherness, which is just cannot be matched. Now, again, you won't remember this, but Euro 96 was in England, and that was amazing. There was just such a great vibe. So I was in year 6 then, so I was 11, and there was just such a great vibe. When the Olympics were in England, I was actually living in Italy. I remember come back and everyone was just going mad for the Olympics, and I thought no one normally watches the Olympics, but there was such a good feel-good factor. So I don't know if you get that when it's kind of spread around. I certainly didn't. Actually, I wasn't in the UK, but I didn't get that vibe of when it was kind of in the UK, wasn't it? A few years ago, when England lost to Italy, they lost in England. So I don't know.
96, that is when the famous song "It's Coming Home" came out, right?
Oh, in fact, I actually thought I want to bring this up. Actually, I forgot because I know that people think people say that we're arrogant because we say that, but people think
coming home.
Yeah.
It's coming
But
home. It's
I just-
coming.
I mean, it is a great song. Let's not beat
Banger.
around the bush. Yeah, it's just even the start of it where you just hear the crowd. Oh, it's great. But forgetting that part, people think that we sing it because like we're sure we're going to win, and it's like we were terrible for so many years. And I think, like, I don't know, Arsenal sing like we're the greatest team the world has ever seen. Like, it's not, people don't actually think that. It's just have a bit of fun, and it's a football song. Like, if you took every football song literally, like, you're crazy, and it's just a song that's a bit of fun. There's nothing more to it than that, and it's great to sing together. But all of these, like, people actually think we sing it because we're sure we're going to win. Like, people say, and that, in fact, when England lost to Italy, that was a common thing everyone said. They said, "Oh, the English people were certain they were going to win." They were singing, "It's coming home,
Rome." Which, fair enough, is a nice play on words.
I like that. I like
that's
that.
That's all the banter, that's the friendly banter.
I totally agree, and yeah, I quite like that. It's coming Rome. But when people saying that, they said, "Oh, I was getting this a lot. English people are so arrogant. You thought you're going to win." I said, "But sorry, where did you hear that? Were you watching BBC before the match? Because I was, and I didn't hear anyone say England are going to win this match. So where are you hearing this?" And they say, "Well, you sing It's Coming Home." It's like, we've been singing that since 1996,
and it's never come home.
It's never come home. And not only that, this is just shows you social media. It's only become famous recently. I remember talking to people and they said, "Yeah, but you've re-released it." No, we haven't. We sing that every tournament since 1996. It's just in 2000, when it was Euro 2000. I think that was in Belgium, actually. You didn't care about it, but it was still being sung, believe me. So it's just a bit of fun. Football song, and I'm sure in other countries as well, people sing football songs all the time, which if you took them literally would make it just ludicrous. So yeah, but Euro 96 was when that came out, and that also added to it because that's a great song.
It's an absolute banger, an absolute tune. Now, let's focus on England this year and what we think about the transition between Gareth Southgate and Thomas Tuchel and his selection. So I'll say that I loved Gareth Southgate. He's an absolute legend. I look up to him. He's such a nice man, a gentleman, a mild-mannered guy. We have some versions of football songs as well with Gareth Southgate. He's taken us so far, but you could always tell that he didn't quite have the tactical nous to be able to get round these difficult opponents when it really mattered, like Italy in the Euro final, Spain in the Euros final. So it's always been clear that he was lacking something, despite all of the great things that he's done. But I'm still not convinced on Thomas Tuchel. No. But I think it's worth a roll of the dice. It was worth mixing it up and going for someone who is proven at having tactical nous and is good at knockout competitions. So Thomas Tuchel, Gareth Southgate, what do you think about them?
The thing is with football, it's fine margins, isn't it? Like, Southgate could have won that Euro final, especially against Italy. It was the penalty is a bit of a lottery. Yeah. And then everyone would be talking about what a wonderful, like, it's the best ever. And you always got to be careful what you wish for, I think, because part of me thinks like we could just have an absolute stinker of a World Cup and like go out in the group phase or something like that. So it's difficult. However, I want to say I'm not a fan of having someone from another country be the manager of the England football team. Just because I just think that it should be the rules. Like, all the players have to be from that country. So I just think that's the whole point. That this is, like I said earlier, I'm not like I didn't vote for Brexit, for example.
Me neither. We're not massive patriots unless it's football related.
Exactly. But I just think this is the whole point. We can't just say, oh, you know what, we'll just have that player from Spain. Like, oh, he plays in England. We'll just pretend he's English. Like, it's fine. You can't do that for the players. So I think you shouldn't do that for the managers. And I also think, like, let's say the final is England-Germany. He is German. Like, do you really, like, if let's say I become manager of Holland, right? Because I've got a really good record on Championship Manager, so they decide to hire me to be the next Dutch manager. I'm manager of Holland. I'm in the final. We're playing England. My heart naturally wants England to win because I'm English. Like, so I'm not a big fan of, no reason of like any, because we had obviously Capello was the England manager, and he's Italian, and I didn't like that either. We had Sven-Goran Eriksson, who is Swedish, and I didn't like that. So it's not like any particular country. I just think it should be the part of the rules. The players are from that country, and the manager should be from that country. But yeah, I'm not sure really about the whole thing. And so you said you're not convinced by him. I agree. However, I also think you can only really judge managers when it comes to a tournament, because qualifiers these days kind of, I mean, especially, luckily, obviously England are a decent football team, so generally the qualifiers are not that difficult, and you generally qualify.
Hey, that's the Italians.
Well, yeah, that's also true. Yeah. But I just think you can't really judge anyone until they get to a tournament. He made quite a controversial selection with his squad. But again, if he wins the World Cup, he's a genius. If he doesn't, everyone will point at that, and everyone looks for excuses. Like when we didn't, the golden generation, like you said, people always say, oh, it's because they weren't friends. It's like, well, I mean, if they had won, so for example, Spain, they had Real Madrid and Barcelona players that hated each other. They won the World Cup. Yeah. So I just think you can find excuses when it doesn't work. But when you win, you're a genius. When you don't, people just start finding. So Fabio Capello in 2010, for example, England had a terrible World Cup. And some people say it was because he took away the tomato ketchup, for example. And then it made the players unhappy because they had been used to having ketchup and his new rules. But it's like, is it really England had a terrible World Cup because they took away the tomato ketchup? Like,
it must be. It must be. The goddamn ketchup. Where was it?
So yeah, I think it's difficult in football. So we'll have to see. But expectations are high now, because you mentioned when you spoke about Gareth Southgate, he took us from 2016 when we had been knocked out by Iceland, which was quite a surprise. And the 2018 World Cup, I think, is my favourite ever. It's just such a great period of my life. I was living in Italy. I'm literally just in the process of buying a house. And it was so unexpected to get to the semi-final. And so I was, I don't know, how old was I? 34 nearly at the time. I was 33, nearly 34. And I'd never seen England in a semi-final of a World Cup ever in my life. Yeah. Whilst now, young people like you, or even people even younger than you, they take it for granted that England get to semi-finals and finals. But that wasn't the case at all.
Yeah. In this case, I remember in 2018 that I had just been in Australia for a year, and we were traveling around Southeast Asia. So I remember watching matches in Bali, in Thailand, in Indonesia, in Singapore, and basically around these places. And I remember making a lot of like friends just because we were watching football together. I'd meet someone in a hostel, and then it's like, oh, you're English. Oh, I'm English too.
Oh, great.
We're playing Colombia tonight at 4 o'clock in the morning. Like, do you fancy watching it? So then we ended up meeting up to watch different matches against Colombia.
And this is the beauty of the World Cup. I love to hear things like this.
It was amazing.
Yeah. And because you think you're on the other side of the world there, and it's still like you've got people meeting up, making friends. Like this is what it's all about.
And it's in a very friendly way. Of course, there were people
Yeah,
from
exactly,
other countries as well. So we would also cheer on other countries. But when we were playing, it was like making a friend for life, just over bonding about watching a match and seeing us win on penalties for the first time against Colombia with Jordan Pickford being an absolute legend, saving everything. And I remember this as well, being like, oh, God. You absolute hero.
That particular match. So to put this in perspective, England had lost on penalties. So in 96, 98, 2006 and 2012, hadn't won one in all of those years. So when we won that match on penalties, my God, like I was watching that at quite a respectable bar in Italy, and luckily the screen was like sort of a projector screen, like, you know, like made of like material.
Mm-hmm.
And when it was Eric Dyer scored the winning penalty, I lost my mind. Ran to, because I know with football, when you've totally lost it, you just kind of run towards the TV. I don't know why, I do. So I ran towards the screen and then sort of got to the screen. I didn't really know what to do at that point. Ended up just sort of like, I was sort of punching the screen a bit, but it didn't break anything. And then sort of going back to my chair, and like I said, everyone's just having like a quiet drink on a Tuesday night or whatever it was, and then just sort of thinking, what have I just done? And then just sort of, all right, okay, well done. And then just sort of going back and just sort of kept on drinking my beer. Yeah. But that, again, going back to moments. Oh, that was that exact moment. And let me tell you another story about that. I then went home and I was buzzing. I was too excited to sleep because it was an hour later in Italy. So match probably kicked off at 9:00. Extra time, penalties. You're talking midnight. So went home, and like my wife, she was already in bed. I got into bed and I couldn't sleep. And then I was on my iPad and I was just reading stuff about it and watching things. And she actually thought that I had like a kind of like a lover or like an affair or something like this. She was like, "What are you doing?" Because it was now like 3:00 in the morning, and I was like, "I'm just like watching some videos of some England fans,
reading all the reviews." Now, we do have other things to do, so let's stop reminiscing.
Okay, sorry. I could do this all day.
We could go on forever, but I think it's important that we do predict the World Cup. And before we get to that, I've just got a few questions because you know a lot about World Cup football, so I've prepared just a few quiz questions. So
let's go.
Martin, the first question is, in which country was the first World Cup held in 1930?
Where was it held? I thought you were going to say who won it. I believe, was it Uruguay?
It was indeed.
And they also won it, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So Uruguay won the first one, and it was in Uruguay.
Yeah.
Next question. Who is the all-time top scorer in World Cup history?
Now, and this has changed recently because my knowledge of football was better in the past. Was it Miroslav Klose, the German player? Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. It was indeed Miroslav Klose.
Who I believe broke the record in an iconic match, which was 7-1 to Germany. I believe he broke the record in that match, which was madness. When they beat Brazil, 7-1 to Germany against Brazil in Brazil. That was madness.
Crazy. Absolute madness. Yeah. And that is with 16 goals. So he is the person to beat. Now, the third question, let's go with, which player has won 3 World Cups? There's only one.
He's won 3. Oh.
Think about big names.
He's won 3. I actually can't think of this.
You named the country just a second ago, and it wasn't Germany.
Oh, sorry, I do know this. It's Pele. Yeah.
Exactly. So Pele is the only player to have won 3 different World Cups.
Yes, 58, 62, 1970. I did know that. Yeah. I was thinking of more recent times, but yeah.
And let's do one final one, and then we'll start predicting. And it is, let me go with, how many countries have won the World Cup? Any ideas?
Uh, Probably not that many. I don't know, but I would say I'm just sort of guessing it. What I could do is I could stop and I could think, because I think I could name the winner of the World Cup from certainly from 1954. I could name every World Cup winner. I could, so I could count this, but because going back before then, it was kind of like, I know in the war and like in the 30s. I know Italy won it a couple of times, I think, in the 30s.
Well, I can tell
But,
you the number if you want, and then we can just clarify which ones. So it is 8 different countries have won the
right,
World
I was
Cup.
going to go 7 actually. So that would have just been a guess.
A close guess. So we've got England.
Yep. I bet I could name these then. So England, so Uruguay, Italy, Germany, Brazil. Brazil won it again. So then England won it 66. 70 was Brazil. 74 was Germany. I've already said them. 78 Argentina. 82 Italy. I've already said them. 86 Argentina again. 1990 was Germany. I've already said them. Have I already said Germany? Yes, I have.
You've already said you're missing 2 that have been very recent.
Okay. So 1990 was Germany. 94 was Brazil. 98 was France. 2002 was Brazil. 2006 was Italy. 2010 was Spain.
Ding, ding, ding.
There we go. Just to finish that off, 2014 was Germany. 2018 was France again. 2022 was Argentina. Yeah. From 1954, I just did name all of them.
You're an encyclopedia. Who needs ChatGPT nowadays?
I don't know. Football knowledge, I don't know why. Certainly, like before sort of 2010, from sort of like 1994 to 2010. Yeah, I lived a very sad life.
A life full of joy and happiness.
Okay, so we are going to stop the podcast there, because this is where we now move into looking at the teams, who's in which group, who we think is going to win, talking about players. So if you want to watch that part, if you're a football fan, I suggest stopping this podcast and clicking the link to the video, which is in the description to this podcast. Okay, now there was actually quite a lot of nice vocabulary from this pod. Okay, so I obviously mentioned at the start, I'm so up for this. Okay, lovely term. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this. And Lewis said we stuck to our word about doing this podcast. So we maintained our word. We were true to our word. We stuck to our word. And I mentioned how I was so pumped up. And then Lewis was talking about Tim Payne, no pain, no gain, and mentioned how you can go down a rabbit hole. Now, this is a really common term now, actually, go down a rabbit hole. It kind of happens online. So a classic thing for me. So I'll give you an example literally from today. I listened to another football podcast today, and it was about Jurgen Klinsmann, okay, the German player. And then I kind of thought, I wonder when Jurgen Klinsmann left Inter Milan, the team in Italy that he played for. So I went onto Wikipedia, I searched for Jurgen Klinsmann, and then when I went on that, I then found out he played for Monaco, and then I looked to see if he played for Monaco at the same time as another player. So I was just getting further and further down with my research, further and further down the rabbit hole. Okay, so that is going down a rabbit hole. It happens so much online now. I often find myself going down a rabbit hole looking for random things, like today about Jurgen Klinsmann. If you don't know him, he was a great footballer and a great man. Well, he still is a great man. He's not dead. So I mentioned how I commented on a friend's post, and I said, after Italy didn't qualify again, I said, this is not aged well. Another common term, because obviously people make social media posts now, and then you say something, and then a week later it might look stupid because the complete opposite has happened. So you say, this has not aged well, has not got old well, let's say. And I mentioned how many Italian friends were giving me stick. Okay, that's a really common thing in the UK, I suppose. People give you stick, like friendly banter, as we mentioned, like friendly jokes. Give someone stick. Okay, they were giving me lots of stick because England lost to Italy. And I mentioned how in that match, Italy missed a penalty and it gave England a glimmer of hope, a tiny piece of hope. And Lewis mentioned that we don't have to wake up at the crack of dawn to watch the England matches. So the crack of dawn, very early in the morning. We spoke about the song Three Lions, Football's Coming Home, and Lewis said it's an absolute banger, meaning absolute brilliant song. And then Lewis spoke about Gareth Southgate, the old England manager, who didn't have the tactical nous. Now, like, that means technical ability, like ability, I suppose, knowledge. And I actually didn't know how to spell that until today. It took me a lot of searching. I kind of went down a bit of a nous rabbit hole to find that. So remember, if you want to watch and find out who we predict to be the winner of the World Cup, then go and watch the video, which is in the link to this podcast you're listening to right now. So thanks a lot for listening. I will talk to you very soon. But in the meantime, just keep on rocking, baby.
Thanks so much for listening to Rock and Roll English. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit rockandrollenglish.com and facebook.com/rockandrollenglish. We'll catch you next time.